We should be live right now. Hopefully, you're all doing well, because I am. I certainly am doing quite decent, to say the least. And today's stream is going to be about, as you can see in the title, it's going to be about Jordan Peterson. It's going to be about anonymity. And I also am going to be covering some other issues as well. Hopefully, I remember what to cover, because I think this will also be a good stream to generally cover a central question that I think is very important in this debate. And that debate is, I don't think this debate is only about anonymity. I don't think anonymity is the main issue, although it's something that I'm going to be covering. I'm going to be arguing why anonymity is necessary, not just optionally good or anything like that. I think it's necessary. But aside from that, I also think the main issue Jordan Peterson is trying to tackle is high trust societies, right? He's trying to maintain the classical high trust functioning society. And one of the reasons why he thinks this is not maintained is because of anonymous people. Now, I also think his attack against anonymity isn't really, I think it's more so influenced by the current struggles he's undergoing. But I guess this is a good place to start then, because a lot of people, this is not just something Jordan Peterson himself like came up with. I hear this sentiment a lot from what I usually like to call the online dads or the online moms. These are people who have a family because they found someone that tolerates them at the very least, and they think that they have the keys to all of the problems in life, right? It's like, oh, look at these young men, they don't have a girlfriend. Well, if they only did the same thing I did, they will be squeaky clean. And, people with that kind of perspective, and I'm referring to kind of like 30-year-old, 40-year-old people that don't really understand this as much as people that are in their 20s or early 30s at least think of. Another group is kind of this people in official positions who do take dissident stances, but they do it in a safe way where they're not going to move a lot. They're not going to move or shift the Overton window. They're not going to really do anything with the conversation, but they're in a safe situation. And you think that if everyone was in that safe situation, that safe space as they are in within the dissident circle, they think they'd be a-okay. But as a matter of fact, that's not true, right? Because the extremists of the opposite side will eventually catch up to people like you, right? This is, for example, I'm talking about like some priests online who might not understand this, and who might not understand the fact that, as a matter of fact, for example, the Bible, because it preaches certain things that go against the current thing, is actually, it's being discussed to being banned. I mean, in the UK already, you can't preach the gospel. You can't preach the Bible in some places in the UK. You're not allowed to, right? But you can do it with the Quran. You can't do it with the Bible, right? You're not allowed to do that. So there's a lot of different things going on. I'm going to try to cover all of that. Just want to say hi to all of the people joining in for this stream. Hello, everyone. Shalom to Black Flame Nova. Hello to you. Hello to everyone in the chat watching this right now. And hello to you who's eventually going to be watching this, at least the recording. Peterson should retire. Yes, I agree. He should. And someone else is saying Peterson is beginning to have yay moments. So there's one side that say he should retire. The other side is like, oh, actually, he's gonna get to the yay level, the Kanye level. I mean, maybe. I don't think so, though. I think he's been very consistent on the gatekeeping. There's one thing Peterson has been very consistent on. It's gatekeeping. He's always been a massive gatekeeper. But as I said, it's not going to be just about Peterson. I don't dislike Jordan Peterson. I think Mr. Peterson, in some regards, is fantastic with some of the things that he has done. He's very good. He's very good at rhetorically explaining certain things of reality. But I think his problem is that he really does not take it to the next level. And that's ultimately why he's always going to be a stepping stone, right? It's like, like a football club. certain clubs are just never going to be like the elite level, right? They're always going to be the stepping stone. They're always going to be the stepping stone for really good players to move on to the next one. Jordan Peterson is kind of like that. He's ultimately a stepping stone. He ultimately doesn't really have answers himself in a lot of these things. So what even is going on? What am I even talking about? I mean, many people might even not know what the whole deal is. So I'm gonna try to show you a couple of tweets that that goes over, you know, some of the stuff that he says, and then we're gonna kind of go over, you know, construct the argument for him by his own words, and move on from there, right? So we want to first understand what the argument is, right? If you're going to defend anonymity, we must first hear the case against it. Then we can kind of construct a case for it. I think that's a good way to go. So for those people who don't understand what the whole deal is, Jordan Peterson recently on Twitter has been very against anonymity, right? He's been taking a charge against it. So he argues that many people who use anonymity as a cloak are in reality trolls. He says that many of these people are in fact, he says that they should be separated from the online space, from real people. So only real people should have some kind of primacy in having to say something. Now, this directly goes against the idea of giving free platform to everyone, right? If you have to give out something, right, your personal information or something like that, right, if you have to do something extra as a member of a community or a website or anything like that, then you don't have equal rights in that sense. Not rights in the governmental sense, rights in the, you know, like using the website or being part of the community or whatever else, more colloquial sense. So he says, why can't you ignore trolls? He says, well, they're poisoning the landscape of public discourse and polarizing the social world. So it's not the extremists who think that we should unalive infants. It's not the people who have an insane ideology when it comes to gender who, you know, it's not the delusional people about the whole, you know, the whole thing from 2 years ago. You know what I'm talking about. These are not the ones polarizing the social world. It's not the people who were going after Jordan Peterson himself, wishing for him to unalive when he was going through a hard time. No, it's actually anonymous people. They're the ones. They're the problem. I mean, that's ridiculous, right? Like, just on the face of it, it's a ridiculous argument. And then he says, most anonymous accounts are counterproductive. Are they really? And he says they should be separated from real people. I think it doesn't go. So that's kind of, so the main argument basically is anonymity removes the skin from the game, right? If you're anonymous, you don't have a reason to be beholden to your beliefs. Number two, anonymous people, he cites a research, this is in a different tweet, but he cites a research saying that, arguing that anonymous people online, according to this research, which we're going to look into it briefly, are much more likely, he says 10 times more likely, to have dark tetrad personality. Well, it used to be dark triad, right? But now it's dark tetrad. I think they added sadism to it. I think it was Machiavellianism, psychopathy. Now there's sadism. There was one thing else I forgot. I don't know, I'm not a master of dark tetrad personality, but I do know that that's an argument he uses, right? So he argues anonymous, usually psychopathic people are anonymous, and it's negative for public discourse. They don't contribute much. They should be separated from the real people in social media, both on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram. I guess you're not going to have much anonymity on Instagram, but, and on these kinds of platforms. So that's kind of the general argument. And a lot of people I otherwise consider to be intelligent actually agree with this assessment, which to me is again kind of strange. But the first thing, he cites a research about the dark tetrad and anonymity. First of all, there's a couple of Twitter users that actually analyzed this research, and they showcase that this research was done really badly. The methodology is all messed up, and the sample size is way too small for it to be able to be, respected as an actual study on this very issue. So you can already read from the abstract. Previous literature into online trolling behavior has focused upon the role of the dark tetrad and political measures separately. This study extended the existing body of research by examining the relation between dark tetrad personality traits. This is what Jordan Peterson used, right, as evidence. And the data was collected using an online questionnaire. So it's self-reported. That's what they have. It's self-reported. And self-reported studies, as many of you know, are not that. They're not good studies. Okay, because there's too many variables. Online questionnaire of American users of Facebook and Reddit, two of the worst social media websites. Facebook and Reddit. Facebook, very known for having the most unhinged boomers. Reddit, I don't think I even need to explain to you. It's literally the worst website. Straight up the worst website. In the summer of 2020, during the meme pandemic. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Whatever. The BLM stuff. Okay, so you can already see what the problem is with this. So the findings that these strains account for 56% of the variance in trolling behavior, blah, blah, blah. So you can already see what the problem with this is, right? It's very lenient to misinterpreting actual, bad behavior with just having normal opinions, right? How do we not know that someone having normal opinions on these issues is not actually psychopathic, right? So this kind of gets into the issue of this. Of course, it's self-reported as well. So self-reported amongst, again, 180 people. I think that's the number. So the evidence is that he uses is actually really bad. But I think it's not that the evidence matters a lot in this case. I think what matters here is why he is so fixated on this, why Jordan Peterson is so fixated on this. And I want to get to that before I get into why anonymity is necessary, and why a lot of people think of this. It's because ultimately, these people are chasing after a utopia that they have lost. What is that utopia? High trust societies. Societies that function, societies that have basic unwritten rules that everyone abides by, right? When you're driving on the highway, you're expected not to pass from the right. If you're from the UK, not to pass from the left, right? If you're on a, stairway, you're supposed to, if you're going to be, if you're going to just stay, people who are going to pass you by, they're going to pass you by from the left. So it's expected that you don't just stay on the left side. But in societies that cannot maintain that, those societies generally do not have much trust, right? People don't care much of these rules. In other countries, people are going to pass from the right, right? Or if you're in the UK, from the left, right? They're not going to follow the social conventions. They're not going to give basic respect. They're not going to follow the basic rules because, for example, is something bad going to happen to them when they don't? Well, they can get away with it, for example, right? So basically, European people are pretty much in love with these kinds of rules to maintain a society. How could they not? That's how we maintain a civilization. And people like Jordan Peterson wants to maintain that. They want to maintain that online. But the problem with that is that the question is in the wrong order. They think social trust doesn't exist because of anonymity. So if you get rid of this, we're all going to be fine. If we solve this one issue, right? But that's not as simple as that. You should instead ask yourself this simple question: why do people want to be anonymous, right? And ignore the people. Even if assuming this research was 100% correct, which it isn't, but let's say, for the sake of argument, that there are these crazy people that are, then what about the good people that are anonymous? Why do you think they are anonymous? Why will anyone want to be anonymous, especially in this day and age? Why will they feel the need to do that? It's the same kind of question I suppose you could ask a certain group of people in 1940 why they would hide their religion and try to escape from the country, right? Now, I don't think Jordan Peterson will call those people cowards for hiding personal information. I don't think Jordan Peterson will call the Uyghur Turks cowards for, not, hiding their information so that they don't get persecuted by the Chinese government. I don't think he will call these people cowardly. I don't think he will call the people in Iran, although the whole Iran stuff is psyops. I don't think he will call the people in Iran cowards for using VPNs and stuff. So why are the Europeans cowardly? Well, because Europeans are supposed to have high trust and, social cohesion. That's why we're supposed to have it, but we can't have it. And what's interesting is that he himself gatekeeps the answers that actually solves the problem. And that actually gets to the point why anonymity is necessary, why people want it in the first place. It is because there is no trust, not just between organizations and government and the people, but even between other people themselves, right? And Jordan Peterson is a great example of this. I mean, look, when he was going through hard times, I mean, his daughter made him look like a clown, posted a picture of him dressed up in female makeup. I mean, made him look like a total, douchebag, made him look like a total clown. When he was having the gut issues, I mean, was anyone there, right, defending him from, public attacks? No. Was anyone defending him from threats? Was anyone saying, "Don't worry, Mr. Peterson, I'm going to lay my life down to you"? No. No one was saying any of it. No one was doing any of that. No one, not a single person. When people were treating him like crap, did anyone? No one did anything. Why? Because he himself says you're supposed to be an individual, individualism for the win. It's the best thing ever. And, collectivism, bad. Identity politics, bad. And the thing about identity politics is that eventually, when you're against it, eventually you have to be part of identity politics in order to defeat identity politics. That's pretty much how it works. You have to be collectivistic in order to collectively fight against something. You don't just individually fight against something. That's just nonsensical. But to get back to the topic again, it's the utopia. These people want the utopia, but they don't realize that the utopia is gone. It doesn't exist. There's no reason why, let me put it in other words, more blunt terms. I don't think most people, if not all of the people I know online, I don't think any of you deserve to have anyone's personal information. Because if someone gets put in danger, right? Like, let's say someone says some based stuff, like he tweets based stuff, and he gets fired because of that. What are you going to do about it? Like, what are you going to do about it? Are you going to hire him? Like, oh, I know this friend, he can hire you, we'll get this. No, you're not going to do any of that. Are you going to, feed him? Are you going to give him food to his plate? No. Are you going to give him money to his GoFundMe? Most cases, no, unless it's like super popular, then maybe the GoFundMe comes. What are you going to do? Nothing. So why will anyone risk their own lives and their information for you when you're not going to do anything for them? What the most you can do is give clicks. I mean, it sounds very blunt. It sounds very psychopathic. It sounds not nice. I mean, but the fact is, right? If I was in a country where it was like a nightmare scenario to say the things that I'm saying, then why will I put my own life on the line to say these things, right? It's that kind of logic. I mean, I don't talk about certain things because I know that if I do, then, my channel is going to be put on, a risky situation. So why will I do that, right? I'm not a dumb person, though, sometimes there's always a little bit of stupid in everyone. But I hope you understand the point that I'm trying to make, right? And an analogy, well, not an analogy, it's something that happened recently in my life. It's a really good example. I met a couple of friends last week, and we were walking to some place to go eat. And during our walk, a friend of ours said, "Oh, I forgot my charger because his phone was low on, battery." And it's like, "Hey, let me get my charger." And we walked back together with him. And one of my friends was, I think he had a leg injury or something like that. He couldn't walk properly. And I basically jokingly said, "Hey, we could just wait, just ditch him." And he kind of like, I think he understood it was a joke, but he kind of made the point that, well, look, we're not individualists, right? If one of us has an issue, right? If one of us forgot something, even if it's a small thing, we don't just send him and have him solve it himself. We go together and then we leave together again, right? We do things together. And even something as small as that, that's how, he looked at things, right? You don't, you stay as a group. You always stay as a group. Identity politics, right? The evils of identity politics. Well, this is just, the collectivistic mindset. But this is not a bad thing. This is not a bad thing, right? Because if even for something small that you're willing to do that, then when push comes to shove, we understand that when things get really difficult, this person might actually be of benefit for any of us. He might help me out. He might actually make it worthwhile for me to say certain things, right? And so that instills courage. The problem is there's no reason for anyone to be brave, right? Jordan Peterson calls people cowards for staying anonymous. Well, you don't give them a reason to be brave. The point of being brave is not to feel prideful and feel good about yourself. I mean, at the end of the day, you're brave for something, right? And people are willing to unite and fight for something that is tangible. It can be nationality. It can be, because you're of the same family, right? Or because you're of the same religion. But, fighting for the same ideology, I mean, just look at history. That usually doesn't pan out that well. It doesn't pan out for that long. Countries that are fundamentally based on ideology, like the Soviet Union, for example, not even the United States. I mean, I think really, the Soviet Union, Italy, Germany, right? Nations based on ideologies, they don't last too long because ideologies tend to be very fickle. But nationhood, that's not fickle. Religion, that's not something that's fickle. That's not something that just constantly changes, right? But ideologies constantly have these little developments and reforms that go around all the time. But when you speak out against it, don't be surprised when, eventually these same people that you've defended, take out the trash and that you end up being the trash that gets taken out. Sorry for the blunt terminology. It's just what someone posted on Twitter. Someone said on Twitter. So that's kind of my general, I don't like to use the term take. That's my general impression of why people remain anonymous and why there is, that trust, right? Social trust is gone, both offline and online. There is no social trust, right? I mean, you can be friends with someone online for years and he'd still be like, still not trust you enough to give out his real name, right? And you can't even blame someone for thinking that way. It's because that's how things have, that's how badly things have gone now. That's how bad social cohesion has in, Western society has become. And, while I was speaking, I didn't notice this because I was thinking too much. But, I guess this will go because Phil sent me a $20 super chat. Thank you very much, Phil. He says, keep up the good work. And you also, whatever you're doing, Phil, whatever you're doing, you should also keep up the good work, my man. Thank you for the $20. Really appreciate it. And, whatever you're doing, hopefully it's the best for you. And, all right. So we've covered why people are anonymous. So let me kind of explain why anonymity is actually a good thing in general as well, aside from this. Because, in 2015, 2016, when I was a young high schooler, I used to be, when I used to take these political tests, I wasn't mature in politics in 2015. So I really only started in 2016, 17, right? Those are the times where I start to mature a lot more. But 2015, I was a bit more no-nonsense kind of a person. I didn't really know much. I took a political test because I was kind of getting interested in that kind of stuff. I think I was 15 at the time or something like that. And there was one of the questions that was asked, like in these tests, is do you support like mass surveillance? Do you think everyone should be surveilled? And my answer was kind of like to that was like, if you don't do anything wrong, then you have nothing to be afraid of. which is basically like, yeah, everyone should be surveilled. If you have a problem with, like, I used to think if you have a problem with surveillance, then that means you're doing something wrong, right? And now I realize that it isn't as simple as that. Even in an ideal society, because again, in ideal society, well, you will need to, survey everyone in an ideal society. In an ideal society, everyone will already be good. You don't need mass surveillance at that point. So it's not like a goal for a perfect society or anything like that. And so that kind of got me thinking, wait a second. I mean, I think the answer is somewhere, you shouldn't be afraid if you're not doing anything wrong. Well, wrong according to whom? And I think that's the main issue that a lot of these people who are anti-anonymity don't really realize, is that wrong according to whom? If it's wrong according to God, well, in that regard, none of us are anonymous, right? So that's a different discussion. If wrong according to the general public, well, I would rather not be judged by the general public. We know what happened with that. I mean, just look at Socrates, for example. We don't want the general public to have the final say on the value of the things that we say or don't say, right? Wrong according to the government, now that's a big problem. And that's a big problem because the governments, right, are big organizations. And the thing about big organizations, and I'm not making a libertarian point, I'm making a general observation. I'm not doing this as like, oh, I think libertarianism is the general observation. No, like literally a general observation. Big organizations, whether it's the government, whether it's, healthcare, whether it's communities and groups, when it reaches a certain size, it's unavoidable that the standards are going to be low. The way organizations continue to live is by the administration and the system within it, right? So the system is set in such a way that it can function even when the people are not up to standards to make it function properly. I think Twitter is a great example. I mean, right before Elon's acquisition of Twitter, I mean, it was administrated in a horrible way. Well, the website still worked, still made money, right? So obviously, in a sense, it was working. And that's the thing with governments, is that ultimately the standards of governance is going to be really low, and what's going to matter is the system within the government and how it operates. And that's kind of the answer by itself, because the judgment of who's right or who's wrong should really ideally be at the hands, if it's going to be at the hands of anyone living, should be at the hands of a philosopher, king, or organization, right? That's like an ancient idea. But you will notice that you're not going to have a philosopher, king organization of 2,000 people or anything like that, of like 500 people in the Senate or anything like that. You're not going to have that. The amount of, it reaches to kind of like an equilibrium where the amount of people that are evil, straight up evil, and have their own goals ahead of yours will be so significant that by default you are going to be unable to generally trust the system itself. Again, this is the nature of organizations, right? This is why many organizations eventually, when they become big and successful, become very impersonal, because it's for your own good. If they were personal, like they said things like, oh, you're part of our family, well, that will certainly be very dystopic, right? Because you can't be my family. Well, that's exactly what's happening right now, right? It's exactly what's happening. Corporations will never be your family, never. And the idea of it is so hellish that I've tackled this in a different video on this, but what was I getting to the point? Yeah. So how does that relate to anonymity? Is, again, you don't want these kinds of groups to have control over what you can say, what you cannot say. The thing is, especially today, when your name is out with your appearance, it means a lot of different things, okay? You're not just revealing your name. You're also revealing where you work, where you studied, who your loved ones are, your family, okay? And conversely, you're also revealing them of what you think and what you say in a online platform where you feel more comfortable to say stuff. It's like being intoxicated. Going on social media is like being completely intoxicated and posting your free-forming thoughts, okay? Because you can't do that in an actual social setting. Well, if your boss has access to certain things that you say, that might eventually in the future be used against you. It can be even used against you in the court. Something that you say that might actually be very normal, particularly in context, if they have access to it, they might find it in court and use it against you. This is why, for example, in the mugshots, for example, you're not supposed to smile. If you smile, that's going to be used against you, right? It's going to be used against, oh, look at him. He's so psychopathic that he enjoys what he did and all of this kind of stuff. Something as small as that can be used against you. Imagine how your statements about how you think of the world is going to be used against you in the court, in your job, in your personal relations. I mean, I've lost friends because I thought Trump will be president in 2016. And I was dumb back then. I should have kept it zipped. I should have kept it online. I should have, I was right at the end of the day. But, was it worth it? Again, was it worth it? Did Donald Trump come by and shake my hand and say, thank you for arguing this for me? No, right? That didn't happen. What happened? Tangibly, what happened? I lost friends, right? I lost friends that I had for years. Am I happy? No. I'm ultimately happy because I was right, obviously, on all that kind of stuff, that I was on the right side and all of that. But again, human psychology doesn't usually work with just that. It doesn't work with how you feel about yourself. But it's also, we are social animals. It also works with what do people think of you, what the impression of you is, and how they understand who you are. All right. So what I'm basically, in a summarized manner, am saying is that anonymity is necessary, because the moment you make that, your personal information public in order to be able to have a skin in the game, the social conventions that make you unable to say certain things will also be real online. I mean, it already kind of is online already with some of the rules. Like, some people can talk about some of the stuff that, because they will be banned for, certain rules or anything like that. But, those social conventions are going to invade, and the limitations are not enjoyable. These are not enjoyable limitations. I mean, for example, let me find an example. Again, I think I gave good examples, but I mean, maybe from my personal, Orthodox Christianity, right? I'm an Orthodox Christian. I live in Turkey, and I don't go around telling everyone that I'm an Orthodox Christian because, it's not because I'm afraid or anything like that. That will be sinful. It's because, one of the things that I'm trying to not do for a long time is I don't want to come across as like an unhinged, like new crazy convert guy, right? I don't want to come across this kind of like unhinged guy. I want it to be natural. I want it to be examined, right? But if I made that public, right, I will not be comfortable with a lot of the things that like I could be saying, right? I won't feel at ease. I won't really want to say a lot of the things that I like to generally say. It's because I just don't want the potential for a lot of random people that might not understand what I'm trying to say to listen to that, right? And to get a wrong idea. What I'm trying to say is I don't want to be that guy who like goes, meets with a bunch of new people or new women, and like he just starts talking about like epic Orthodox Tsardom for like 2 hours. No, that's dork talk. Okay, that's dork talk. That's not what just that, your Victoria 3 pet theory, your Europa Universalis 4 autism, map game theory stuff. Most people are not going to want to listen to that for more than, 1 minute. Okay, because human brains, when you're socializing with people, some of you might not know this, but when you're socializing with people don't want to think too much. People sometimes want to just unwind, relax, meet new people, and experience things in that way. Right? Not everyone is suited for super deep philosophical discussion, and really a lot of people, including the ones enthusiastic about it, which I will include myself, to be honest, are not really super fit for it unless they aren't prepared for it. But actually, I don't believe that. I think I'm the smartest guy ever. I'm just kidding. But again, that's one of the many examples of what you don't want to see, what you don't want to be revealed about yourself. So now, and another thing I wanted to make a point about is anonymity is Lindy. Now, what is Lindy? Lindy, basically think of Lindy as if it has a long lifespan, then the likelihood of it having a long lifespan is high. And that sounds kind of stupid, but what I'm just saying is that, you had ecclesial organizations for thousands of years. You had some kinds of ecclesial organizations, whether it's in paganism, Christianity, Islam, Judaism. There's been, religious organizations. Or religion, just to say religion, right? This means in the future, the chances of there being religion is very high, basically. And that religion, and it also means that religion is a natural part of human psyche and human collective experience. Okay? Think of tea, right? Even something like tea. I mean, tea is very Lindy. It's been around for a long time. It's probably going to be around for even a longer time. So anonymity, again, is very Lindy. Anonymity has been important throughout history. We have anonymous writings from various different people still to this day, whether they're philosophical writings, theological writings, or even, oratorial writings. We have, particularly in near history, right? Anonymous newsletters and stuff. So it's something that is part of us. The idea of masking yourself, keeping yourself hidden, it certainly is a part of us. And if it is not a supremely negative thing, then being against it is kind of just unnecessary. You're putting too much energy into something that is not going to be gone, right? Now you might want to limit it, right? So for example, degenerate acts, right? Unfortunately, murder is Lindy, right? It's something that's been around for a long time. It's going to be around for a long time. But, we can limit it, right? Now, do you want to limit anonymity? Is it something that should be limited? Well, so far as you have seen, there's really not much reason to actually do that, actually limit it or anything of that sort. So I think to get back to Jordan Peterson on this, I think the biggest problem I have had historically with him is again his gatekeeping. I am for gatekeeping. I do believe in gatekeeping in general, but I don't believe that the gatekeeping that Jordan Peterson does, where he it's the same kind of gatekeeping that you see in modern society, where they will talk about how important free speech is, the marketplace of ideas, and all this kind of stuff. But certain ideas, no, you're not even allowed to say them. But who gets to decide what you're not allowed to say, right? Now, the base usually is if it's a call for violence, right? Well, what if Jordan Peterson's, let's say, a false flag, right? Someone listens to Jordan Peterson talk about pronoun stuff, and he gets really, affected by it, and then he commits heinous acts because of it. Will that mean that Jordan Peterson's speech was a cause for, well, it can be construed in that manner. So does that mean that whatever he talks about should not be allowed and anyone else should not be allowed to talk about? We've seen many instances of that happening. Many, many, many instances. And it's too many to count. And it's very, very regular. So, again, this gets to the problem of, we don't live in a utopic society anymore. So, for someone like that, to gatekeep certain ideas is exactly why someone like Jordan Peterson, although it might be useful, ultimately, he is not someone that will be able to give you answers ultimately. He's way too vetted into his classical liberalism, into his individualism. As I've explained before, individualism is a cancer belief. A cornerstone of individualism is the idea that the smallest unit of society is just the individual. Now, do you see what the problem with that is? Do you see the problem with that approach? If the smallest unit of society is the individual, then let's lead this to its logical absurdity. Can there be a society of just one individual? No, right? Is there a society of just one individual? No. If you made a society of something and you're the only member, that's not a society. That's not. It's society in potential, maybe, but you get the point, right? A society presupposes a plurality of persons. That's why the smallest unit of a society cannot be the individual. That's why the foundation of society is collective. It is based on the collective of the family, which is based on the collective of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Right? The family is, in a sense, a reflection of that, right? The love that the Father has for the Son is reflected and manifested in the Holy Spirit as it is, given to each other. The love between the husband and wife is manifested in, the birth of the son or the daughter, right? Of new life, right? So obviously, with all analogies, this analogy doesn't hit everything. I mean, obviously, the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, when we speak of, we need to understand that the kind of love that they have is not the fleshly love, right? Because God himself is not fleshly, he's not worldly, but he is beyond matter. Whereas human love, especially after the fall, does have fleshly elements, right? So we need to kind of conceptually subtract that from that and many other things, right? For example, the Father and the Son together do not produce the Holy Spirit, whereas the Father and Mother do together produce the new Son, etc., etc. But it gets to a very core idea of what a human community is supposed to be and what a society is supposed to be, and its theocentricity. But if you're a classical liberal, scratch all of that, smallest unit of society is just the individual, even though you cannot have a society with just the individual, right? Then it cannot, by definition, be the smallest unit, because it by itself is not even a unit. Or another way to think about this is an individual is always seen in the context of being in a family. Now, a family doesn't have to necessarily be seen in the context of belonging to a nation. That certainly was not the case in the very, very early times, right? So when that's the case, again, the family has to be the smallest unit. And when the family is the smallest unit, you cannot, when you accept this proposition, you cannot be an individualist. Therefore, you cannot be a classical liberal, because that's the moment you have to admit, actually, we're not individualistic. It's fundamentally against human nature. It doesn't make logical sense. And we have to abandon this stupid belief and have to realize, okay, man is a social animal. Man is a relational animal. Man sees himself in the context of others. And whatever belief you must have about man must be based on exactly that. And when you understand it, you understand a couple of things. You understand that appealing to self-evident principles by themselves is not going to have a function in society. Okay? A lot of people had this idea that, if only we went to these third world countries and gave them democracy and education and healthcare and jobs and all of these beautiful and wonderful things, if only we did all of that, then these people will be exactly as civilizational and educated and great as us. That's not how reality works, right? It doesn't just work on self-evident principles and ideas that the individual looks at and says, oh, this makes a lot of sense. I'm going to implement it to, myself now, and everyone's supposed to follow it, right? Because individualists like Jordan Peterson thinks, they have this kind of universalist understanding where, universalists believe that after the final judgment, everyone's going to repent, right? Everyone's going to just, before, at the final judgment, everyone's going to repent because they're going to see the truth. Or so, oh, God exists and he's wonderful and being with him is so great. And they think that everyone's going to choose to repent. Well, there's a lot of people who reject and hate God. I mean, they hate going to church. I mean, you see people saying stuff like, I mean, imagine going to heaven and it's just like a church service. Like that would be so, like, people say that kind of stuff. So like, yeah, I am not as I am humble enough to admit that I don't think these people are going to think the same way as I do about these things, right? It's the same problem that Jordan Peterson himself has, and a lot of these people have. They think that if you just give them the good information, they'll just come to the right way. Unfortunately, some people just are completely opposed to that way of life. And the reason why they're fundamentally opposed is not even just because they have, these individual opinions that, no, it's because they understand themselves according to the civilization that they were brought up in. That's why when you, for example, import a lot of people, even though they might be great people, right? They are never going to be like the native people of your country, right? Like if a German came to Turkey, I mean, he could certainly be a great person. He could certainly be a great contributor and all of that. But is he ever going to be Turkish? I don't think so, right? I don't think so. Maybe his children, but he, culturally, yes. But, and this is because, again, because you look at his family, and what is his family, right? Is his family of the same civilization, mindset, identity, and cloth as ours is? No, right? And just saying these things and expanding upon these things, I mean, I probably shouldn't be saying this. I mean, someone with bad intentions can basically use this to, I don't think that way actually, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think the whole appealing to human rights, like that's another thing, human rights. What is human rights? I mean, no one asks this question, because if you ask this question, again, think about anonymity, everyone will look at you like, you're crazy. Like, you're crazy. How do you think drinking water is not a human right? It's like, yeah, I mean, what even is a human right? Like, it's certainly not something physical, so it has to be conceptual. But if it's conceptual, what is it based on? I mean, it seems like it must be based on God, but then you look at the UN, Charters of Human Rights and the Declaration, and they don't really appeal to a divine being. They don't really appeal to anything. They just say, or you look at the Constitution, I mean, it's kind of like we hold XYZ truths to be self-evident. It's like, why? Is it because denying them is logically inconsistent? Well, actually, no. So it can't be that form of self-evidence. Why is it self-evident? Because we said so. We said so. You have to believe what we say, right? I mean, you can't even appeal to a divine. You don't even appeal to a divine being. Which, if you did that, at least I would respect and say, okay, at least you have a justification, right? At least you have, but you don't. None of this actually appeals to, right? Like this concept, like people talk about, oh, this goes against human rights, etc., etc. I mean, are they good things? Many of them, yes, but that doesn't mean that they exist, right? If they're just human conventions, again, that's a whole can of worms itself. But I think we've departed a lot from. I think I've departed a lot from the topic. But anyone in live chat, if you want me to cover something else, like what do you think about just this whole situation, because I kind of gone very much off topic, and people are telling me right now, people, very very trustworthy people, are telling me right now that Brazil has lost to Croatia. Dang, that's really funny. That's really funny. That's actually hilarious. Oh my goodness. Collectivism wins again. W for collectivists. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But yeah, like another thing that came to my mind. I mean, Jordan Peterson got mad when someone pointed out that he has a video that is a message to Christians. He has another video that's a message to Muslims. But there's another group that he doesn't have really a message to, right? This group, so it's on the tip of my tongue, but I don't seem to remember who they exactly were. But he doesn't have a message for them. It's kind of strange. So it seems like he only has messages to Christians. It seems like only the Christians and the Muslims seem to have a problem, and maybe they're the ones that matter. I don't know. But when someone pointed out to him, he didn't even make an argument. He didn't say anything. He just said, "You're an evil troll." It's like, okay, so you're no different than leftists. You're no different than the postmodernists. You're no different. Peterson goes out of his way to stress the importance of an overarching morality connecting the units in a society. Just because an individual is a base unit doesn't mean that's the end of the story. Well, first of all, the individual is not the base unit. But secondly, I think, I definitely commend his effort to do that. My question is just is again, what is the justification for the overarching morality? To find peace? Hopefully to make peace. Why? What's the basis of peace? Why is peace good? Oh, it's because it's chaos. It's because it's fight over. Okay, chaos. Oh, so why is chaos worse than peace? Of course, when you say it like that, and people are going to say, "Oh, you're crazy," but no, I'm saying you're the crazy one. I'm just saying you cannot explain why peace is a good thing. Right? I can explain why peace is a good thing. You can't. That's what that's the problem at hand. You can't explain it, and if you cannot explain it, the thing about logic is that eventually it catches up. And when logic catches up, it does not turn back. Okay? We had the free speech, absolutist, classical liberalist experiment since the 2000s. We've had that experiment. That reached its logical conclusion. We're never going to get back to it. We're never going to get back to the time when it used to function. That's gone. It doesn't work anymore. The system tried, it tried to function, and that's what the conclusion of the system was. So it is not going to work at all. That's the thing about logic. When it reaches to its conclusion, oh boy, it does things that some people love to see and some people really, really hate to see. That's why it's important that our beliefs must be activated and energized by faith, but our beliefs and our reason must also be reasonable, right? Because faith is not unreasonable. I know, the Dostoevsky quote, if Christ is against truth, then I am against truth, something like that. I don't like that quote. I don't like that quote. I don't think that's a good argument. I think God is the basis of all of these things. If Christ and truth were contradictory, there will be no Christ and there will be no truth, because Christ is truth himself. Message to Hindus. Yes! Where's the message to the Hindus, Mr. Peterson? I feel it's quite ironic that JP was supposed to teach young men how to be men, but he can take a bit of trolling. LOL. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Well, again, Jordan Peterson is not in a good psychological situation as well. And I don't mean this in I usually, when I point this out, I usually like to point this out like it's a donk. It's like, boom, you're a crazy person. No one should listen to what you say. But it's like, no, he really is not in a good position mentally. And it's sad. I don't feel like a big reason why I don't try to be triumphalist in this response, at least if I am that way, that's not what I'm trying to do, is because while I don't have any enmity against him or what he says, I don't feel offended at the things that he says. I'm just I just feel genuinely sad. I feel very sad that that he is this way, that he has these demons that he's fighting against, and I hope that he's made whole again. But for him to be made whole, I think really ultimately has to be, and I'm not saying this as in like a psychopathic, like Bible thumper, like, oh, if only, because the problems are not going to end. But I think really his only chance left is really to be Orthodox Christian, to be whole, or at least to start the process of being made whole again. I think any other solution that he tries to go for is not going to give him a good resolution. Can you be pro autocrat dictator and be critical of large organizations? I mean, I think so, but I seriously doubt a dictator I mean, uh, hmm. I mean, that has happened a lot in history. Let's be fair. That has an autocrat unaliving his family. That has happened a lot, my friend. That's happened a lot. Ivan the Terrible. Hello. um, Not even just Ivan, but like many again, even like good leaders. I mean, I get the point that you're trying to make, but um, no, I think it needs to be qualified. Peterson stops where the questions start needing answers. Yes. Jordan Peterson must be spending a lot of time on Twitter, judging on the intervals by which he tweets. Dudes an eternal trigger. I mean, yeah, but like when, again, like Twitter, like social media is like a comfortable, home space. Okay. You feel comfortable. You feel relaxed. That's why a lot of people can say things that they will normally not say in an occasion. Like if I'm in a meal with a couple of like people I've just met, I'm obviously not gonna get into super in-depth Orthodox theology like I do it in this channel, mainly because, well, I need your money for it. I'm just kidding, but it's just that it's just that I'm not in the home space. Basically, I don't feel comfortable enough to do that because I understand. Okay, I need to keep my mouth shut a little bit because if I talk too much, it's going to be disrespectful to these people who are here to listen to me, but they're not here to listen to they might just not be ready for it, and they might feel that I'm just monologuing, and they might just tune out and think that I'm being a douchebag towards them, and I don't want to be that way. I want to be respectful towards these people, especially if they show respect towards me. So I keep those things on the down low, and I just talk about regular stuff, right? Sometimes connected with religious things, and then kind of just like pull it back. It's like you know like I sometimes have really good conversations with my friends on these issues, and I always I constantly ask them every like 10 minutes when I'm like getting really deep into it. I'm just saying, like if this is like, I'm sorry for talking too much about this. Like if I completely and totally understand if you like want to change the subject, like just completely transparent. And like if you're more like that, if you're more transparent, it's usually very good for you. But again, online you feel very comfortable, and so Jordan Peterson wants to be in that comfort. But when you're in that comfort zone, paradoxically, you get put in a situation where you are agitated. It's like a person playing Dota, right? Dota, a video game, is supposed to be comforting for you, but games like Dota, they give you comfort when you play it, but then the things in the game give you so much agitation that it goes against the purpose of playing the game itself. And I think he has put himself into that online trap, and he really needs to, relax. Why does Jordan support nationalism for the greatest country, but the greatest ally? But he says that America and Europe shall have open borders. Gee, gee, you see, it's our responsibility. I don't know. I don't know what Jordan will say about that. Um, be more peaceful, you know. I don't know. I probably have a very bad Jordan Peterson accent. My Peterson accent is not as good as Jim Bob's, which is amazing. I can't even understand why you would want open borders for them. You know, it's a tragedy. It's a repeating of the atrocities of the past. That's more like a woman. I don't know. It's not Jordan, but anyways, Mickey Mouse says, yeah, that is Miss Mickey Mouse, but yeah, that's kind of like the basically what I wanted to cover with anonymity, free speech, Jordan Peterson. There's a lot more I could say, but again, respecting the guidelines of my hosts, I will keep my mouth shut. And I wanna finish this video with an announcement. Well, a stream with an announcement, and I'm gonna close it off. I will be starting a new video series. We're back on the nerdy Orthodox theology stuff, okay? And this is gonna be amazing. It's gonna be a new video series, certainly long, and it will serve a very good catechetical purpose. It will be good for people who are new to Orthodoxy, beginner level Orthodoxy, beginner level Christianity, even, and even advanced level. Right, we're going to be talking about advanced concepts as well in a condensed manner. And I plan to keep the videos actually quite short as I possibly can. It's going to be a good video series. I would recommend you guys definitely to listen or watch, preferably, because it's going to be PowerPoint presentation. And I've already completed 2 videos so far. I'm not going to do all of them and then upload. I'm going to upload them over time, but 2 presentations are already completely done. They're already completely done. It only took 1 day to finish both of them. So I think it will definitely be beneficial. And hopefully maybe in the future, we'll see more content like this come out, because it feels like to me, it's been kind of a long time since I talked about theology as much, which is strange because like recently I had a debate review with Jay Dyer on Ubi Petrus debate on the Filioque. That went super deep. That was like that could go as to the core of the issue as I think we possibly could have. But I think it's time to make a comeback on that regard. So that's pretty much all I have to say. Hopefully you enjoyed. Again, I had to ramble a bit, but I'm doing this scripted, okay? Sorry, my friend, English not my first language. Me no speak English first language. My first language, not England. So it's difficult for me to speak unscripted. It's difficult for me to speak unscripted, I suppose. But hopefully there was some nugget of wisdom I could have given to you. If there was none, then it's okay. And I'll see all of you in the next video or next stream. Thank you for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe if you haven't already. Subscribe to my channel. And I'll see all of you in the next video or stream. Thank you for watching.